Oh, hey there. That's right. You're watching this show, The Young Turks with Kasparian and John Iadarola. It's Wednesday. Super excited.
Wow.
Hi,
there was
John.
an arc to that intro. It was like an emotional roller coaster.
Right?
How's it going?
I get so goofy and like excited when I'm hosting with you. Everything's going well. You're wearing a fun shirt. It's got pineapples on it. I'm feeling it, you know?
You got what is that flowers on yours?
Yes, it's a delicate floral design.
I have a delicate fruit design.
Yes, I love it. I love it. We're having fun today. If you are watching live, I highly encourage you to please like and share the stream. If we get to 2,500 likes and shares today, we will sing a fun song in the last segment of this show. Our members can send us some of the suggestions on what they'd like us to sing. If I recognize the song and think I can do a decent job, I will perform, and hopefully I can get either John or Brett to do backup vocals, because that was really fun the last time we did it.
Depends on the song. We'll see.
Well, we'll see. So quick announcements, some housekeeping before we move on to the rundown. Emma is hosting a watch party on our Twitch channel. If you didn't already know, yes, we do have a Twitch channel, and there's all sorts of fun original programming on there. So go to tyt.com. I'm sorry. My bad. Okay, so Emma Vigeland is hosting this week's watch party. You can link your Amazon Prime to the Twitch account and join Emma. Go to, or for the movie night, just go to, there it is, twitch.tv/TYT, twitch.tv/TYT. She's gonna be hosting Saturday, September 19th at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, 2:30 p.m. Pacific. It's gonna be awesome. You get to vote on which movie you wanna watch with her, and the options are Footloose, Dirty Dancing, Inception, and Atlas Shrugged, Part 1. So just go to tyt.com/polls/Emma. Again, that's tyt.com/polls/Emma to tell us what your preference is for the movie to watch. Also, the Imagen Awards are going to happen, and we're going to be streaming them. No big deal. We're excited to partner up with the Imagen Foundation to exclusively stream the 35th annual Imagen Awards, recognizing and honoring accomplishments by Latinos in the entertainment industry. And guess what? Ida Rodriguez will be hosting, so you don't want to miss it. So the info for that, it'll happen next Thursday, September 24th at 8 p.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. Pacific. Just go to tyt.com/live to watch it live. And you can also watch it on YouTube, Facebook, YouTube TV, Roku, Zumo, Pluto TV, Comcast Xfinity, X1, and Flex. Damn, there's a lot of stuff going on here. And Samsung TV Plus, okay? We're all over the place, taking over. You ready for some news, John?
If you have anything else, I'll take that first. But sure, news, that's what you've got.
I feel you. Well, we got to do the hard stuff. We got to do the news, and let's start off with Trump's disastrous performance during an ABC town hall. Donald Trump had a rather terrible performance during his town hall with ABC, where he breezed through one bungled answer after the next. Talking about coronavirus was no exception. Take a look.
We're going to be okay, and it is going away, and it's probably going to go away now a lot faster because of the vaccine. It would go away without the vaccine, George, but it's going to go away a lot faster.
It would go away without the vaccine?
Sure, over a period of time. Sure, with time it goes.
And many
away.
deaths.
And you'll develop herd, like a herd mentality. It's going to be herd developed, and that's going to happen. That will all happen. But with the vaccine, I think it will go away very quickly.
Got to take a quick break.
I really believe we're rounding the corner, and I believe that's true.
As you know, Dr. Fauci disagrees with that.
Well, I mean, but a lot of people do agree with me.
Now, when you hear Trump use the phrase herd mentality, you might think that, especially coming from a doofus like him, he's referring to his supporters pouring into a Target and yelling at patrons to take off their masks.
Take off your mask! Take it off!
Or you might also think of Trump supporters running into a Trump rally that's taking place indoors without wearing masks. And look, as tempting as it is to dunk on Trump because he is a moron, in reality, what he was referring to there is herd immunity, which is an incredibly dangerous and awful response or policy toward coronavirus, because it would mean that hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Americans would die as a result of pursuing that short-sighted and awful policy. So herd immunity is something that Donald Trump has mentioned before, but he did the same thing that you heard in that first video. He didn't call it herd immunity, he called it herd mentality. So let's take a look.
Other countries try to use the herd or the herd mentality. It's just, something that doesn't work. If we didn't do what we did at the time, we could have lost more than 2 million people. I really believe that. I could show you charts of other places that gave it a shot and they're not doing well. And I would show it to you right now. I don't want to embarrass anybody, but they gave that a shot. And it's an automatic. I mean, everybody would say, let's do that, until they sit down and start thinking. And we could have lost more than 2 million people. We could have lost more than 2 million. Could have been much more than that, by the way. We have one that says from 1.6 to 2.2, but it could have really been more than that. But I looked at one country in particular, that is using the herd mentality and not working out very well.
So Trump was likely referring to Sweden, which implemented herd immunity. But as you can see in those earlier videos, Trump referred to herd immunity as herd mentality. And he also acknowledged how disastrous that policy really would be and how it would lead to so many people dying. Now, Trump has pivoted towards something more accepting of herd immunity. I'll tell you why in just a minute, but John, why don't you jump in?
I just want to die right now. Yeah, I had missed in the past that he had called it mentality in those past. I've seen some of those videos, but I guess I just naturally fill in the blanks to be accurate. What's amazing about it is that he has repeatedly, up to recently, because recently he just starts saying that he's doing this, that they're pursuing this strategy. But for months he had been like taking a victory lap, dunking on other people who'd be stupid enough to pursue this strategy, including, as you know, Sweden, which is literally the one European country that every right winger says we should follow suit with. After being apparently the only identifiable US politician to actually push for this early on, with Dr. Fauci having to tell him that it would kill millions of people. He then uses his own stupid suggestion to look smart by comparison, which just seems absolutely insane. Like, and the weird having to one up himself, like that the 2.2 million people that would die, that he'll now never acknowledge that he said that it would have somehow been even higher than that. He doesn't know anything about this. He doesn't care anything about this. And I know that you're gonna go through some of the numbers of how this would actually play out, but really fast, let's just say you have to do your job as a journalist to call it like they implemented the herd immunity strategy. But that doesn't mean anything. It just means let's not do everything we can to stop people from being infected with this. It's as if zombies were rampaging through and I implemented the buffet strategy, which was eventually their stomachs will be full of warm human flesh and blood, and then surely they'll stop feasting on us at that point. It's not really a strategy. It's just like, it's like you gilded surrender, basically. And that is literally what they are pursuing right now. They're increasingly willing to admit it with casual references like you saw from Donald Trump last night, but that is 100% federally the strategy that we're pursuing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even if it's not officially announced, Trump has really backed away from doing anything or even considering anything that would be effective in responding to coronavirus. Meanwhile, the cases continue to rise. We're still seeing many Americans die every day, hundreds, if not on average, 1,000 Americans a day dying from this virus. And this just lack of compassion or concern for human lives is kind of incredible. And look, Trump really doesn't like the way we're talking about him right now. So I was trying to bark through this entire segment, but don't worry, I put a stop to it. So where is this language now coming from, right? He mentions herd immunity, calls it herd mentality. Well, keep in mind that fairly recently, there was a new coronavirus advisor who joined the coronavirus task force, and he's very much in favor of herd immunity. Scott Atlas, one of President Trump's top medical advisors, is urging the White House to embrace a controversial herd immunity strategy to combat the pandemic, which would entail allowing the coronavirus to spread through most of the population to quickly build resistance to the virus. Now, he promoted this idea during an interview with Brian Kilmeade on Fox News. So if you hear Kayleigh McEnany say that Scott Atlas does not support this policy, please understand, just like most other statements given by Kayleigh McEnany, that's a lie. Also, the administration has already begun to implement some policies along these lines, according to current and former officials as well as experts, particularly with regard to testing. So testing has slowed down a little bit. That's one other thing to keep in mind, because it goes along with this pivot toward a policy that's even more disastrous than what the country was already experiencing. And now let's talk about how many Americans are likely to die while herd immunity is implemented. Atlas has argued both internally and in public that an increased case count would move the nation more quickly to herd immunity and won't lead to more deaths if the vulnerable are protected, meaning elderly people in nursing homes. But infectious disease experts strongly dispute that, noting that more than 25,000 people younger than 65 have died of the virus in the United States. And by the way, these are numbers from August 31st. So I'm guessing that the numbers of deaths for people under 65 are probably higher now. In addition, the United States has a larger number of vulnerable people of all ages because of high rates of heart and lung disease and obesity, and millions of at-risk people live outside of nursing homes, many in households with children whom Atlas believes should return to school in person. So this guy's a disaster. Now let's get to some pretty devastating numbers. Herd immunity for the coronavirus would need to be somewhere between 50 to 70% of the US population having resistance to the virus, which means about 165 million to 230 million people would need to be infected and develop immunity. With the death rate of about 1%, that means 2.3 million people could die in this country under herd immunity. Disaster.
It's a great strategy. It's the best. I take issue with one thing you said there. You said what Scott Atlas believes, and then you reference accurately that infectious disease experts disagree with him. In fairness, that's chops because he's not an infectious disease expert. So it's really unfair to put him up against those people who actually know what they're talking about. I know people might be confused about that since he's apparently Trump's top medical advisor on a viral pandemic, but he's not actually a doctor of that sort, doesn't necessarily know that much more than any rando about this. And judging by the conclusions that he's reached, I'd argue he knows less than someone like me, whose medical expertise comes mainly from watching episodes of House. Yeah, millions of people will likely die. And bear in mind, he's saying the numbers won't go up significantly if we protect vulnerable people. First of all, as you noted, many people who are younger than that die. Many more suffer terrible injuries that can potentially be very long lasting. We're learning more about that over time. But also, this is a political movement that has given rise to the Target rioters and things like that, the people you just showed on that video. How are you going to protect those vulnerable people when you have convinced people by telling them to liberate their states that they don't need to deal with this, that it's a hoax, that it's fake? Why protect grandma from something that was just invented by Bill Gates and doesn't actually exist? None of it actually makes any sense whatsoever. And to look out there and to see this and know, like, I'm sure many people watching this have lost family members to this. I lost a family member to this. To look into the future and know that we are doing everything we can to increase the number of people that are going to die from this, it's so horrifying. And the cost, like, even if Trump loses, we're looking at another 6 months of rampant 1,000 deaths plus every single day. I mean, God only, like, if he actually wins re-election, who can say how many hundreds of thousands of additional people will die? But the entire thing is like a horror movie that we're being forced to watch in real time.
Look, even if Trump loses, we are on track based on the number of Americans who just reject wearing masks. We are on track to have hundreds of thousands of more deaths by the end of the year. That's a story we'll get to later in the rundown. But Scott Atlas has referred to himself as the anti-Fauci, which means that we should be listening to Fauci. If you care about your health, your loved one's health, you want to make sure that you and your loved ones survive throughout this pandemic, listen to the advice of Anthony Fauci as much as possible. And he has weighed in on herd immunity. Here's what he had to say.
Are they still at the White House? I know that some of the advisors have said that they're not doing this, but are they talking about herd immunity?
That's not a fundamental strategy that we're using. The fundamental strategy that we clearly articulate and go by through the task force is to try to prevent as many infections as you possibly can prevent. That when you get someone who's infected, you do the identification, isolation, and contact tracing, and you do the kinds of things to prevent infections, the things that I've just been speaking about with you when we were talking about trying to make sure we don't get any surging of cases over the Labor Day weekend. So I'm not so sure what that's all about, but we certainly are not wanting to wait back and just let people get infected so that you can develop herd immunity. That's certainly not my approach. It's certainly not Dr. Birx's approach or any of the other people that I know of on that task force.
Now, of course, with the exception of Scott Atlas, and props to Anthony Fauci for using that awesome Zoom feature that like really smooths things out. He looks great in that video.
Oh my God.
Had to comment on that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Continue.
No, go ahead.
Oh yeah, he can say that. Okay. He's apparently wrong. Maybe that's not his strategy. Maybe that's not Birx, although I doubt that. You cannot look at what the federal government has done / is not doing and not come to the conclusion that they don't care. And again, we call it the herd immunity strategy. It just means not doing anything to stop it. He's not instituting any sort of nationwide lockdown, nationwide mask wearing mandate. He's not even encouraging people at his own rallies to wear masks. He is allowing it to spread. That's all it is. And the one extra person that I think deserves some criticism here is George Stephanopoulos. Because he knew going into that Trump has been making references to herd immunity, that Scott Atlas is on his team and all of that. Trump uses it in an answer, and Stephanopoulos is like, well, we have to go to a break. Okay, yeah, he fact checked him on a few things, but what is more consequential than this? Him casually slipping into a town hall answer that, oh yeah, no, we're doing the thing. Remember the thing I said is gonna kill millions of people? No, I changed my mind. We're totally doing that. Yeah, we really have to get to those commercials. That's the most important thing right now. What's the point of having him there if you're not gonna question him on that topic?
Well, look, George Stephanopoulos isn't the executive over at ABC, isn't an executive over at ABC. He's hosting this town hall, and yeah, breaks suck, and you got to go to breaks. But I think I'm just keeping it real. Breaks are the worst. But he did do a decent job fact checking in a number of other answers. So I will be critical when I think that it's appropriate. And I hear what you're saying. I would prefer that they didn't go to break in that moment. But I don't know if he's 100% in control of that. You get what I'm saying? And speaking of which,
go to the break and come back. Go to the break, come back, and ask about it. You can't move on from that. It's too important. Like if he was like, oh yeah, and by the way, in a week I'm gonna nuke Iran. We got a break. I can't ask a follow up about that. No, at some point you're obligated. Hundreds of thousands of lives, possibly millions of lives are on the line. What are you there for if not to ask questions about that?
I hear you. I definitely hear you. So we got to go to break, and we will be right back with more news, including more terrible answers from Trump during this town.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, "You must unlearn what you have learned." And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFDR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
Hey everyone, welcome back to TYT. Anna and John with you. We are trying to get to the goal of 2,500 likes and shares of this stream. It's one of the easiest ways you can help this show. And if we get to that goal by the next segment, I will sing a song. And James from our members section, you can become a member by going to tyt.com/join, writes in and suggests Hadaway's "What Is Love?" And I love that song. I karaoke that song.
The one from the SNL sketch?
Yes.
Oh my God!
Night at the Roxbury.
I don't even need backup. I don't need any backup vocals for that song. Okay. Cerberus Alpha says, "How about Pretty Fly for a White Guy" by The Offspring? That's a fun song. I think I like Hadaway a little bit better though.
I would have 100% guessed that out of those two, you'd choose that.
Oh really? No,
yeah.
I love Hadaway. I love dance music, like especially 90s dance music. Occam's Taser says, "I heard more and more Trump supporters are being diagnosed with herd mentality." Depleted Uranium Cowboy says, "Sounds more like thinning the herd." Absolutely. I mean, that's really what the whole purpose is. All right, and then real quick, let's take a look at our thermometer. As you guys know, we're trying to raise money to keep TYT sustainable through members and audience contributions. So if you go to tyt.com/go, that's where you can contribute. Our goal for September is to raise $200,000, and we're quarter of the way there. Not too bad, but not great. So 50,398. Thank you to everybody who contributed. You guys are incredible. We're halfway through the month, so it would be nice to be, halfway to our goal. But thank you for everyone who did take the time and make the effort to contribute. We really appreciate it. Without further ado, let's get to the rest of the news. One of the worst answers Trump gave during his town hall on ABC had to do with pre-existing conditions. Let's watch.
Should pre-existing conditions, which Obamacare brought to fruition, be removed?
No.
Please stop and let me finish my question, sir. Should that be removed within a 36 to 72 hour period without my medication? I will be dead. And I want to know what it is that you're going to do to assure that people like me who work hard, we do everything we're supposed to do, can stay insured. It's not my fault that I was born with this disease. It's not my fault that I'm a black woman and in the medical community I'm minimized and not taken seriously.
Now, before I get to Trump's disastrous answer, I have to note that woman was incredible. Her question was on point. The way that she asked that question was awesome. And I love the fact that she didn't allow him to interrupt her, because that is an important question that many Americans are concerned about, especially when you consider the fact that Donald Trump and his administration is fighting very, very hard to repeal the Affordable Care Act. And so let's go to Trump's answer, where he utilizes the same tactic that you can expect, just flat out lie.
We are not going to hurt anything having to do with pre-existing conditions. We're not going to hurt pre-existing conditions. And in fact, just the opposite. If you look at what they want to do, where they have socialized medicine, they will get rid of pre-existing conditions. If they go into Medicare for All, which is socialized medicine, and you can forget about your doctors and your plans, just like you could forget under President Obama. What we're doing is we're going to be doing a health care plan, pre-existing, protecting people with pre-existing conditions. As an example, yourself, it sounds like that's exactly perfect. That's exactly what we're talking about. We're going to be doing a health care plan very strongly and protect people with pre-existing conditions.
Donald Trump has been in office for more than 3.5 years. He has the power to get congressional lawmakers to pass what he believes would be a better healthcare plan compared to the Affordable Care Act. But we haven't seen Republicans or the Trump administration specifically propose anything to replace Obamacare with. And luckily, George Stephanopoulos did call Trump out on that. Let's take a look at that video.
I just have to stop you there because it's just on a couple of points. Number one, Joe Biden has ran against Medicare for all in the primaries, but much more importantly, Obamacare guaranteed people with pre-existing conditions could buy insurance, guaranteed they could buy it at the same price as everyone else, guaranteed a package of essential benefits, guaranteed that insurance companies couldn't put a lifetime limit on those benefits. You fought to repeal Obamacare. You are arguing.
Well, I essentially did.
You're arguing in the Supreme Court right now to strike it down. That would do away with pre-existing conditions.
So that we can do new health care.
But you've been promising a new health care plan. I interviewed you in June of last year. You said the health care plan would come in 2 weeks. You told Chris Wallace that this summer it would come in 3 weeks. You promised an executive order on pre-existing.
I have it already.
But you've been trying to strike down pre-existing conditions.
I have it already, and it's a much better plan. We have run it really well. But we also have now if you go Department of Labor, our great secretary, as you know, and you know him well.
I have it already. We're not asking you about herpes. We're asking you about healthcare policy. But John, I'd like you to jump in and share your thoughts on this because he just lies. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, he's just 100% lying. Like best case scenario, what has he got? Like a scrawled drawing of Dr. Mario in his pocket. That's the closest he's got to a healthcare plan already. No, as Stephanopoulos points out, it's always 2 weeks away that you're gonna see it. It's 2 weeks away a month ago. It's 2 weeks ago, a year ago. You've been president for literally years. Where's your plan? You don't control all of government now. I get that. How many times has Nancy Pelosi been forced to block your healthcare plan? Has that ever happened? Of course it hasn't happened because you don't have one. Your first priority was to kill the ACA. You tried to do that. Thankfully, it didn't work. There was no replacement even being discussed at that point. When that failed, you went to the Supreme Court, which Stephanopoulos mentioned there. You're just destroying it. Maybe someday there'll be some sort of plan, but we haven't seen anything about that. Certainly doesn't seem like a priority. The Democrats at least did put those protections in. And how many people watching this think that if Obama had failed to pass the ACA back more than a decade ago, and then Romney had become president, that he would have prioritized it? Like who actually thinks that at this point? And certainly not Donald Trump. He doesn't care at all. They're trying to destroy it right now. It's like an obsession of theirs. And in terms of the plan that he supposedly has right now, he said again last night that it would be coming, just like his immigration plan. He said last night is 2 to 3 weeks away. So today, Kayleigh McEnany was asked about that. What are the details of the plan? And she said, "I'm not here to tell you details of the president's proposals." No, that's literally what you're supposed to be there. That's the only thing you're supposed to be there for. And it was a bad day for her to be claiming that because during congressional testimony today, multiple top officials in the Trump administration involved in health policy said they're not aware of literally anything. And so again, maybe picture of Dr. Mario, but that's probably as detailed as it is right now.
No, you're absolutely right about that. And I did some digging because who knows, maybe there's something that Donald Trump maybe casually talked about in one of his unhinged press conferences. And I did come across one thing that he said last month, August 7th to be specific. He floated the idea of completely repealing the Affordable Care Act through the Supreme Court. That's what his administration is actually working on right now. And then he would use an executive order to protect people with pre-existing conditions, but he can't do that. So let me give you the details. No executive, okay, he says over the next 2 weeks, this again is a statement he made August 7th, 2020. Over the next 2 weeks, I'll be pursuing a major executive order requiring health insurance companies to cover all pre-existing conditions for all customers. That's a big thing. I've always been very strongly in favor. This has never been done before. Except it's currently being implemented through the Affordable Care Act, which he's trying to repeal. And luckily, the Associated Press called that out, saying no executive order is needed to protect people with pre-existing medical conditions because Obamacare already does that, and it's the law of the land. If Trump persuades the Supreme Court to overturn the Affordable Care Act as unconstitutional, it's unclear what degree of protection an executive order would offer in place of the law. In fact, Larry Levitt, who's the executive vice president of the Kaiser Family Foundation, said, I can't imagine what authority the president could invoke to require insurers, private insurers, to cover pre-existing conditions if the Supreme Court does throw out or throw the ACA out. There is no magic wand you can wave to just make it so. So, but he doesn't care. I mean, he has bragged about executive orders that did nothing. For instance, he had bragged that he passed an executive order to lower the cost of prescription drugs for Medicare recipients. Did that actually happen? No. Did he enforce it? No. Did it mean anything? No. Everything is he's a reality star host. Everything is about the superficial appearance or aesthetic of doing something for people, when in reality, behind the scenes, it's nothing more than a ridiculous marketing ploy to get people to support him. But he leaves people in the dark all the time. He leaves people out to suffer all the time. What amazes me is that as his supporters are suffering from his inaction, his incompetence, his lack of leadership, his lack of compassion and empathy, they still think that he's working for him. For them, and he's just not. It's amazing.
Yeah, and remember back during the 2016 campaign, he was in support of like healthcare for everyone, literally a government plan that would insure everyone. Where has that been? He's only been president for 3 years. I guess he's going to get around to it sometime. And I love that it's going to be for the first time. It's going to be protected when it's already been done. It's like him passing veterans' choice, which he didn't do. It was the previous president. It's kind of a cool way to live your life, to just take everyone's accomplishments for your own and then claim that you're great to have thought of it. Like I know I'm already busy. I've got a show, The Damage Report, but I really want to start a show that does like deep dives into particular areas of policy. And so I'm going to do that. I'm gonna call it No Filter. It's never been done before on TYT Network. It's gonna be mine. Somebody had to do it someday, so I'm gonna do it. You're welcome, America.
You know what? I'm gonna pass a Kasparian order that indicates that the Damage Report is actually a show hosted by me and not by a man named John Iadarola. Anyway, Michelle from our comment section, members comment section, and you can become a member by going to tyt.com/join. Michelle writes in and says, Trump supporters are already attacking the woman who asked the question during the town hall, calling her rude. Trying to finish your question is not being rude. And I agree. I think that she asked the type of question that so many Americans want to ask, want the answer to. And I give her a tremendous amount of credit because I agree, there is some level of courage that you need to have in order to stand up to Trump publicly because his base is vicious. And we do have a story on that a little later in the show. But first, let's talk about masks.
Dr. Anthony Fauci, for example, who's on the Vice President's Health Commission on COVID, say that by wearing a mask, you're helping to stop the spread. What do you think of that? He's a liar. And why is that? Because I don't believe in numbers.
Our very own Michael Shore went to Georgia to speak to Trump supporters going to a Trump event. And unfortunately, Donald Trump's rhetoric on masks has certainly rubbed off on his supporters, as you can hear from that woman who is not a supporter of logic. Now, with that said, Trump unfortunately continued to reiterate his skepticism toward mask wearing in the middle of this pandemic during the ABC News town hall. Let's take a look at what his answer was.
A lot of people don't want to wear masks. There are a lot of people think the masks are not good. And there are a lot of people that, as an example,
who are those people?
Well, I'll tell you who those people are. Waiters, they come over and they serve you and they have a mask. And I saw it the other day where they were serving me and they're playing with a mask. I'm not blaming them, I'm just saying what happens. They're playing with a mask, and so the mask is over and they're touching it and then they're touching the plate. That can't be good. There are a lot of people, if you look at Dr. Fauci's original statement, you look at a lot of people, CDC, you look at a lot of people's original statement, they said very strongly, George, don't wear masks. Then all of a sudden they went to wear masks. The concept of a mask is good, but it also does, you're constantly touching it, you're touching your face, you're touching plates. There are people that don't think masks are good.
Listen, that answer is one of the many reasons why it's so important for honest people to always be honest and precise in what they're saying and advocating for, especially during a crisis like this pandemic. So Trump isn't wrong. In the very, very beginning, people were told not to wear masks, but it wasn't because the masks were ineffective. People were told not to wear masks because there was a mask shortage in the United States, and frontline healthcare workers needed access to those masks in order to do their jobs. So that, honestly, that disinformation was damaging, and now Trump is using it to his advantage. And we gotta be honest about that. So let's just state it, and now let's move on to the crazy, ridiculous answer that Trump gave there about what happens with waiters and waitresses who wear masks. There was a comment in a thread from a waitress in Wisconsin on the efficacy of masks, and I wanna read what she had to say. I'm a server, I have been for over 20 years. And he is right, servers do not wanna wear a mask. We do, however, want to have a job, not get sick, keep our guests safe, make money, go back to normal. We wear masks because it is the right thing to do, plain and simple. I really appreciated that tweet. And John, I wanted you to jump in and share your thoughts.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, a great follow-up. Again, it's not like you're gonna pin him down, but okay, so you're sitting there and that waiter is serving you, Donald Trump. So you would have preferred if he had just been breathing directly onto you. If all of these people, instead of touching their mask, were just breathing directly onto you and you'd breathe directly onto them. That's preferable. You seem to be implying that. And to the woman that you had that doesn't believe the numbers, like I wonder often about the things that they believe. So she's going to a Trump event, and if you believe what the Trump event organizers say, they hand out masks to everyone in the audience. Like clearly 90% of them plus don't wear them, but they do hand them to them. So why do they do that? Like from the point of view of that woman who doesn't believe the numbers, why are they handing you a mask? You love Trump. Trump's the best. Why is he wasting his time? Right now, he's working on a vaccine. Why is he working on a vaccine? Why is he prioritizing it since the numbers are all made up as you believe? What's the point of doing that? And I'm sure she'll say something about to placate the media or something, but you have to believe this web of internally contradictory things and just to avoid putting on a mask or to avoid being a part of society. I think it goes a little bit deeper than just the cloth. They don't want to be a part of America coming together to defeat this thing because they've been convinced that it doesn't exist, that it's not a priority, that it won't kill people like them. But sadly it will, and you know what? There's a chance that those two people will get infected from going to the event that they were at. The whole thing on Kayleigh McEnany today was saying that Trump has always supported mask wearing. She said that today after the video that you just played last night.
The double speak drives me crazy. And what also drives me crazy is that this is something that we could have basically fought against together as a country. We could have combated this effectively. We have the resources, the evidence, the medical professionals. We have all of that on our side. And we just don't have the right leadership, of course. Unfortunately, that leadership comes along with a pretty divisive and toxic culture. And if you listen to actual medical experts and professionals, like the director of the CDC, he's very honest about how effective masks really are, Robert Redfield. So let's take a quick listen to what he had to say about masks just today.
These face masks are the most important, powerful public health tool we have. And I will continue to appeal for all Americans, all individuals in our country, to embrace these face coverings. I've said it, if we did it for 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks, we'd bring this pandemic under control. These actually, we have clear scientific evidence they work, and they are our best defense. I might even go so far as to say that this face mask is more guaranteed to protect me against COVID than when I take a COVID vaccine, because the immunogenicity may be 70%. And if I don't get an immune response, the vaccine's not going to protect me. This face mask will.
And social distancing is also very effective. So if you keep your distance from other people and you wear a mask, you are very unlikely to contract the virus. And that's just what the evidence bears out. Countries that have implemented these policies effectively have seen coronavirus numbers, new cases drop significantly. And by the way, I should note, there's a certain number of people in the country that need to wear masks in order for the virus to stop spreading. And so I want to share some of those statistics with you, including what percentage of Americans are actually wearing masks. So according to a key predictive model used by the White House Coronavirus Task Force, the University of Washington's Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation, universal mask use could save hundreds of thousands of lives by the end of the year. The model projects a total US death toll of just over 415,000 under current conditions versus about 298,000 if universal masking were being observed. As you guys know, we're already at 200,000 deaths. So if people were actually using masks regularly, some people would still get sick, some people would still die, but the number would drop dramatically. The model predicts a death toll of around 612,000 if masking and social distancing mandates are eased, and as we know, they have been eased in many red states. Also, the US is currently at about half the coronavirus mask compliance needed. The model defines 95% mask compliance as the target for the universal mask use, but shows current mask use at just 45%. And yes, if you suspect it's because of Trump supporters, it absolutely is. Among those who plan to vote for Trump this year, only 33% said they'd worn a mask every time they left home. By far the lowest compliance of any subgroup polled. The highest compliance was among Biden voters at 72%. And it's because Biden doesn't mock mask wearing. He wears masks himself when he's out. Leadership matters.
Yeah, and unfortunately, tragically, the lack of compliance among the Trump voters could lead to eventually some of those Biden voters dying. That's the way that it actually works. And people might hear those big numbers that you were talking about and wonder, well, how are we possibly going to get to that? Well, just as you were talking, the most recent COVID Tracking Project Daily report was released, and over 1,200 Americans had been reported dead in just one day. And that happens every day. Day after day after day after day, 1,000 plus more Americans. And so that's how we'll get there. The video that you showed of Redfield there, Trump during his press conference today said that both of the claims that Redfield made there, one about the fact that the masks could be better than a vaccine, and one having to do with the timeline for the vaccine. He said that he was wrong about both those things. He was mistaken, he was confused, he didn't know what he was talking about. That's how you get all of these, the people in Target and the people talking to Michael Shore, not understanding what happens. And also the thing is that we live in a country that fundamentally doesn't understand a lot about medical science. And so they think what happens when you take a vaccine? You're immune, that's it, you don't have to worry about it. That's not how it works at all. And it depends entirely between different vaccines and between different diseases. It could give you a certain amount of immunity. It could give you immunity for a certain period of time. Those sorts of false beliefs lead to people being okay with, for instance, the herd immunity strategy. The herd immunity strategy is founded on the idea that once enough people have vaccines or have the antibodies, it won't spread enough because those people are immune to it. But we don't know that that's even possible with this particular disease. We just skip past all of that and assume, well, it'd be nice if it was. So let's pretend that it is, and we'll pursue that strategy. What's the worst that could happen? Maybe a few million Americans die. And that sort of lack of interest or knowledge in the science pervades every single bit of the pandemic and our response to it.
We got to leave it there and go to break. Remember, we're trying to get to 2,500 likes and shares. Like and share this stream, and I will sing something fun. We'll be right back.
At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your activity more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen, guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today.
What's up, everyone? Unfortunately, we have not hit our goal of 2,500 likes and shares as of yet, but it's not too late. If Brett updates me and says that we have hit that number, one of our members has suggested a dramatic reading of Lollipop by 3-6 Mafia. I'm in favor of that. Dahmer, I hear you. Loud and clear. Some super chats. We got to read some super chats. Kimber Maddox says, free Assange. She's being tortured. You have more subscribers than any other progressive media outlet. Please cover his court hearings. I promise you we'll look into that. Micah says, Ida Anna show. I like it. Liz Smith says, I heard you guys were raising money. Thank you for your donation. Atomic Mime 01 says, Trump on his new healthcare plan. My dog ate it. I wouldn't be surprised at this point, honestly, if he used a ridiculous excuse like that. Okay, well, let's move on to our next story. Donald Trump could not handle himself during his town hall with ABC. He bungled one answer after the next, showed his lack of compassion for Americans, showed his lack of leadership, and more importantly, just his inability to come up with a plan during a time of crisis. Now, Laura Ingraham, Donald Trump's mommy, who comes to his rescue during interviews on Fox News, feels that Trump was ambushed by questions that you would expect the most powerful person in the country to be able to answer. Let's take a look.
Hosted by ABC News and former Clintonite George Stephanopoulos, but the DNC may as well have put the whole thing on.
You should know that some of these people voted for you last time around. Some voted for Hillary Clinton.
Why did you throw vulnerable people like me under the bus?
Why don't you support a mandate for national mask wearing? And why don't you wear a mask more often?
Why would you downplay a pandemic that is known to disproportionately harm low-income families and minority communities?
And then there was this moment.
Should pre-existing conditions, which Obamacare brought to fruition, be removed?
No.
Please stop and let me finish my question, sir. Should that be removed?
Unsurprising that Laura Ingraham would have the biggest problem with a black woman asking an incredibly important question of Donald Trump on an issue that would negatively impact countless Americans who had previously been denied healthcare coverage because of pre-existing conditions. But anyway, John, I wanted to get your thoughts before we move on to examples of Laura Ingraham protecting poor little Donnie in the past.
Yeah, so it was an ambush. So I'm assuming that like Stephanopoulos pulled him out of Air Force One, black bagged him, dragged him over there and threw him in there. And not that he willingly went there and perhaps actually reached out to set it up, to be asked questions about the pandemic. And imagine that, thinking that, well, it's not fair to be mean to Trump about his response to the pandemic. I mean, only 200,000 people have died. Those questions were not only fair, they're 100% expected. The news came out that he told Bob Woodward that he was purposefully always downplaying it. Someone's gonna ask a question about that. That seems kind of fair. And the woman that totally was only in that montage by Laura Ingraham, because Laura Ingraham deeply hates black people, that didn't let Trump talk over her, that insisted that she get out her question. One reason she might have done that is because the other woman earlier in the video, which had brought up the downplaying, when she said, why did you downplay it? And Trump used his upplaying line, she started to cut in to say, no, you literally said you downplayed it, and he talked over her. And the woman sort of gave up and sat down. And so that's why other people weren't going to allow that to happen. They were 100% respectful. They gave him the opportunity. That woman gave him a chance. And the woman that Laura Ingraham pointed out said today that she actually isn't going to vote for Donald Trump now as a result of that interaction.
What's amazing is that, like, okay, he's the most powerful person in the country, if not the world. And every time he fails, he uses the same excuse of like, oh, it was unfair to me. It was unfair to me. I'm the victim. How does anyone support that? Look, even when he was asked questions from lifelong Republicans during that town hall, he bungled it. Watch.
In the light of the ongoing protests surrounding the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and the recent shooting of Jacob Blake, do you feel racial injustices are occurring in this nation? And if so, what can be done to address them?
Well, I think they were tragic events, and I do feel that we have to also take into consideration that if you look at our police, they do a phenomenal job. You'll have people choke, make mistakes, and they happen. It happens where they have to make a fast decision, and some bad things happen.
Yeah, mistakes like choking people to death. I mean, look, the reality is Laura Ingraham seems a little salty about the fact that she wasn't there to protect him from himself, because he had made similar statements during a sit-down interview with Laura Ingraham, and he bungled the answer, and she tried to basically help him out. Take a look.
A choker, they choke. Shooting the guy in the back many times. I mean, couldn't you have done something different? Couldn't you have wrestled? You know, I mean, but they choke. Just like in a golf tournament, they miss a 3-foot.
You're not comparing it to golf because, of course, that's what the media.
I'm saying people choke.
People
choke.
Yeah. So it's an ambush, John, because no one's there to save him from himself, basically.
Yeah, and it's an ambush because this is now at least the third event, maybe the fourth, where he's used that new choking line of his. It's gotten a negative response literally every time, and he just keeps using it. He can't learn, he's a moron. That makes the situation an ambush.
It's just, yeah, I mean, again, he is responsible for the decisions that are made in this country. He's responsible for the policies that are implemented during this pandemic. He's responsible for at least attempting to do something productive and effective when it comes to social unrest throughout the country. He's only fueled it because he thinks that it's better for his re-election campaign to focus on it and fearmonger about how that would end up being Biden's America. No, this is Trump's America. We are falling apart as a nation. Workers have lost their jobs. Tens of millions of people remain unemployed. He is not a victim. The only way anyone could possibly see him as a victim is if they consider the fact that he's a victim of his own stupidity and ignorance. The post game is next. You don't want to miss it. John will be joining me to talk about many stories, including Trump's press conference from today. Become a member. Go to tyt.com/join. See you there.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of the Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.